everything is seen through a frame. I had this reflection as I was on my morning walk this morning. My dog was sniffing a rice field early in the morning. It was around 6 a.m., quite dark, and I heard someone coming up behind me. At this time, I'm not used to seeing many people. It's normally very still, very quiet, and someone got very close to me. And as they approached, I turned around quickly to see who it was. My body tensed, my heart rate was pulsing, and my instant reflex was danger. Quickly I saw it was a rice field worker going about their day. They smiled at me and continued on their morning. And in that moment, I got a bit scared and I got a little bit caught up in danger, caught up in a narrative. And as I went on the rest of my walk, it got me thinking about how quickly we can get caught in a perspective, a frame, a story that isn't quite accurate or that is too narrow. And it got me thinking that we're always seeing life through a lens. We're not really seeing reality. We're not really seeing what's happening. And I got reflecting on the default way we see the world. So I would call this the default frame, the default perspective that we walk around with. And I was trying to narrow it down to as small amount of variables as possible. And I came up with the default lens must be zoomed in and personal. So by zoomed in, I mean it focuses on short-term events. It focuses on what's happening to me right now. It focuses on the immediate. And it's also very personal. It's always about me, what's happening to me, how is this going to affect me? Am I doing right? Am I doing wrong? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? And this is the narrative. So when we observe our life, we'll quickly see that this is true, that we do generally walk around quite zoomed in. We do generally focus on, I'm the center of the universe and everything affects me. And it got me thinking how limiting that can be, how we miss so much. So when we think about a frame, it's one way of seeing the world. Okay, it's one lens. But what about all the things we don't see? What about all the things we miss? And what about all the default frames that cause us problems? All right, so I started reflecting on how very often we're stuck in a story narrative, very often a limiting one, about what you can do, what you can't do, what you're good at, what you're bad at. And we're so obsessed about the short term effects, the short-term decisions. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they cut you off. Why me? When a business thing doesn't work out, when you lose some money, when you don't get praise, all these things are very short-term and they center around yourself. And it got me thinking about how in order to improve the quality of your life, the quality of your decisions, you need to upgrade your frames. You need to upgrade your perspectives and the lens you see life through. And so the first step is understanding this, okay, I'm actually not seeing reality, I'm seeing life through a perspective. I'm seeing life through my conditioning, through the lens I'm currently in, and very often I'm too zoomed in and it's too personal. So that's the first step, understand it. If you don't have that, you won't have any chance of making any progress. So the first thing we need is awareness to understand that we are only seeing a limited frame. This kind of cracks the door open and gives us opportunities to potentially change how we see things. However, we also face resistance. When we try to change things, change the way we're looking at things, we face a lot of pushback. We face a lot of friction. We're very used to seeing ourselves in certain ways, seeing our behaviors, seeing our world through a certain lens, through that zoomed in me lens. So when we try to change it, it doesn't feel very safe. It doesn't feel very familiar. And that's when we face a lot of pushback. And one of the challenges here is that we've identified with the frame as being us. Rather than realizing I'm seeing life through this perspective, we think this is us. This is me. This is how I am. This is how I show up in life, in the world. And we make it personal. And we make it personal and we're zoomed in and our identity is attached to it, we very quickly struggle to change perspectives and change the frame we see through. So all of this is great to know. It's great to understand this, to have the awareness. But we need to really work on changing frames. And it got me thinking, if I had to create a process for changing frames, what would it look like? How would you gain more perspectives and use them in a really practical way? Because I don't want this to be a very conceptual exercise. I want you to be thinking about how I can gain better perspectives that allow me to navigate life better. Because often we're looking at problems through a very limited lens. We're looking at our lives, ourselves, through a very limited lens. So I started thinking about what it would look like in practice to understand the lens you look through, but actually do something about it. So I came up with a 5-step process for practicing reframing and changing the lens you look through. All right, so the first step is to catch the frame. All right, and this is anytime you're in a situation, rather than saying this is how it is, like there's one way, ask yourself, what way am I looking at this situation? What is my current frame? All right, and this instantly removes away personalization. It removes away this is how it is, and you realize it's just a story. So any event that happens, there's many stories that you can tell about it. And often the story is, I'm the victim, this happened to me, here we go. But you can also flip it around. There's other scripts you can look at. But the first one is, what is the current frame? The second step is to zoom out. All right, so often we're zoomed in on it, the situation, let's say you have a problem, let's say it's a money problem, and your frame is, I'm struggling with money right now, and it's causing me a lot of stress. All right, so the first one is we've called it, that is the frame. Second thing is we will zoom out. So we'll zoom out and look at it from a higher lens, or a longer time span often works. So we can ask things like, will I be worried about this in 5 years? We're creating a time distance to zoom out, all right? Because remember the default is zoomed in and personal. The step 3 is to depersonalize, all right? Stop making it this victim narrative, realizing that these events are happening, but it's not personal. Maybe you're having money problems, but the world isn't out to get you. Nothing's happening against you, all right? The whole things are just unfolding. So rather than judging the events as a story of this is happening to me, we start to look at it as these are events that are happening. The story's not over yet. These things are just events that are unfolding, and I don't need to create a personal narrative. The fourth step would then be to try on a new perspective or a new mental model. And for this, they've got loads of tools. When you understand mental models, ways of seeing the world, you realize there's a lot of useful ones that work for lots of situations. And there's a few that I fall back on very often, which really help me to see a situation, see a problem from a very different lens. So give these a try and see how they work for you. So the first one is systems thinking. And this is where you look at what other things could be contributing to the situation. You think big picture. You think how your behaviors, your actions, your thoughts all interact with each other. You don't look at one variable, you think how other things could be helping. And there's many ways you can look at that lens. The next one is first principles. This is a mental model where you strip away everything, all your assumptions, and you ask, what is actually true? What is actually factually true here, and what is just assumption, what is just story? When you do this, you end up with only a few things. You strip away so much noise, so many things you've been saying, and really it's like, this is the event. So if you did it with your money problems, you'd be going, I have this much money, these are my outgoings, I currently don't have the money for X, Y, Z. That is the reality. Nothing else. That's it. And you deal with that reality. So first principle strips away all the noise, so you arrive at the core essence of the situation, and from there you can take the next step. The next lens I like to use is probabilistic thinking. And this is where you ask, what is the likely outcome of all the situations, or all the events I'm worried about? Often we dramatize. We think about very low probability events and we blow them up into big probability events. So think about what the likelihood of worst case scenarios is. Think about the likelihood of best case scenarios and accept both of them. All right, and once you think about this, often you've already realized you're worrying about a lot of things that could happen, that might happen, that are very low percent chances. And even if they did, you couldn't control them. So alongside probabilistic thinking, I also like to think, can I actually impact this? If I can't control it, why am I worried about it? And try not to get too caught up in things that are out of your control. And the fourth one I like to use often is opportunity cost. What am I costing myself by being stuck in this lens? What am I costing myself by pursuing this train of thought, this action, this event? And realizing when you say yes to something, you say no to something else. When you're worrying about something, you're stressing about something, that is time, energy that could have been invested in solving the problem, in moving towards something. So opportunity cost often is used in investments, but I think about it in terms of allocation of time, energy, and resources. And very often you realize I'm costing myself a lot by allowing myself to dwell in this situation. And the fifth step is repeat. Repeat the process, get in reps, and practice changing perspectives. So this is something I've been reflecting on today, and hopefully you will go away from this video and reflect on it too, to realize your mind is a framing machine, that it will constantly interpret, it will generalize stuff, and it will create meaning out of what's happening. It will very often create its own lens that is very zoomed in and personal. None of that's a problem, but it becomes a problem when we have that as the only lens we see through. So as you go through your days, look for opportunities where you've created a limited lens and catch yourself and go, what lens am I looking through? Any problem you're having, ask yourself what lens you're looking through. Next step, zoom out. How can I look at a longer time span? How can I see this from a different vantage point, from someone else who's less personalized? Depersonalize it is step 3, where you're going to make it not about you, just an event that's happening. Nothing's personal. Don't make it my story. This is happening to me. It's an event that's happening, and the events are what they are. Don't make it personal. Then you need to start trying new mental models and new ways of seeing things. Right? How can I change this? How can I change the way I'm looking at this? This is such a skill. Almost every problem, it's just a framing problem. When we learn to frame things better, create a new perspective, look at a different mental model, very often we realize, the problem isn't that big of a deal. Or if it is, this is what it is, accept it, and I need to do these actions to help me fix the problem. And when we see our lives that way, we become very malleable. Things become very flexible. We don't get fixed in certain viewpoints and ways of seeing stuff. And we realize life's a game of spotting where we've got faulty mental models, faulty frames, zooming out, changing those frames, and then attacking those. And we repeat that over and over till you get very good. So you get the point where you've got a problem and you just stop and go, is there a different way to see this? Could I be looking at the situation from a different lens? When you play the game all the time, every day, you'll get very good at it. You'll develop lots of toolkits, lots of frames, lots of mental models that you can use for situations, and life becomes a lot easier.